So, you want to design characters, or maybe you already do, but want to change up or improve your process in some way. Hi, I'm Sinister Sons. I'm a fantasy illustrator and I've been designing characters for over a decade now. Actually, I think it's been about 15 years. Oh, Jesus, that's a long time. Anyway, I've been making characters for a long time, and I've taken a few classes that tackle character design as well. Those classes are actually the inspiration for this video, specifically the fact that in a few of them, I absolutely hated the process my professor wanted us to use. It was a very particular process. Silhouettes, then refined silhouettes, sketches, both of the design itself and of facial expressions, then pose drawings and a final design. All within like a week or two. It was grueling and low-key made me hate designing characters for a bit. This process felt like it was optimized for extremely cartoony characters as well, like Bugs Bunny or Mickey Mouse. And I don't know if you all have noticed, but I don't do that kind of thing. Not every design class was like this though. I was also taught some methods that I never would have thought of on my own and that I still sometimes use in my design process today. So in this video, I'll be laying out some different methods and tips and tricks you can use to approach character design. Also, please keep in mind that I'm not a professional character designer and have not yet worked in the industry, even though I'd very much like to. So this isn't advice for that kind of thing. This video is meant to help you find a designing method that works for you by taking things you like from this video and incorporating them into your own process. The point isn't to be professional, it's to have fun while achieving your design goals. I always find it useful to decide on why I'm creating a design before I start drawing. Is it to fill a hole in a story? Is it a mascot or a persona? Is it purely for fun? Depending on your purpose, your process can vary quite a bit. For example, if you're just making an OC for fun, you can do literally whatever you want. But if you're making a character for a story, that character will need to fit into your setting and narrative. Their physical traits, costume, and personality should mesh with your setting as well as their role within the story. For this video, the design I'm creating is once again for Reclaimed, but will be for a subspecies of tieflings I've developed known as Draconic Tieflings. For once, this isn't a redesign. I actually have never drawn one of these guys before. Along with designing the species in general, I'll be making an OC to help further develop how they fit into the world. So now that you have your purpose, you'll need a jumping off point before you can design anything. Almost all of my characters begin as a very basic concept. In my previous video, the concept for Pyra was a fire paladin princess with giant wings. For this design, my concept is a tiefling mixed with a dragon. Next, you'll probably want to gather some inspiration and references. There's so many ways to do this. To name a few, you can make mood boards, listen to songs, draw from life experience, reference history, play around with character creators, literally just look up concepts like Ice Knight, or I don't know, Mafia Boss, or Nerdy Girl from the early 2000s, etc., etc. And, okay, this might seem kind of taboo, but you can even lift the entire personality or look of characters from existing media as a starting point. Here's an example of an OC I have that started as basically just Rhaenyra Targaryen if she was a pre-T trans guy, but as I've written about him and drawn him more, he's become his own character. Alright, we can finally get into drawing. In my process, I always start by figuring out the character's body type and generally how their face looks, because I hate trying to do that while also designing their outfits. I recently bought Ryoko Kui's book of her Daydream Hour drawings, and there's a page where she simplifies her characters into exaggerated shapes. I used this with designing Pyra, and also went back and did it for Lorraine and Amrit because it was a lot of fun, and I found out that it was really helpful for figuring out what about their body types makes them stand out from each other. If you struggle with same body syndrome, I highly recommend trying this out. Some people love silhouettes, and some people really don't. I'm one of those people. But they're used so often for a reason. It's very similar to how Ryoko Kui broke down her characters into simpler forms, and silhouette sketches help you iterate quickly to figure out what shapes are clear, recognizable, and would work best for who your character is. When I'm designing for myself, I typically skip the silhouette stage. Instead, I do what you've seen me do in my character redesign videos. I draw a small base of the character's body type and draw a bunch of different costume options on top, as well as hair options if I haven't nailed that down yet. In a way, it is similar to silhouettes. You're focusing on the way everything looks overall rather than intricate details, and it still lets you iterate quickly. While I'm doing this, I like to have an abundance of clothing references on hand so I can easily mix and match elements that I like. I use PureRef for this. But you could also photobash clothes together to make something entirely new. Photobashing is kinda like making a collage. You cut images out of larger images and smash them all together. This is easiest in Photoshop because of its object selection tool, but you can theoretically use any program. Alright, we're taking a slight detour to talk about a design method that I love, but is rarely brought up in these types of videos. This has been about humanoid characters so far, but say you're designing an OC that borrows anatomy from animals, like wings, or is straight up a furry or a whole creature. If you want their anatomy to be believable, not strictly realistic, but plausible in the sense that the future is wild as possible, you can venture below the skin to the bones and muscles. By referencing the anatomy of real-life animals, you can Frankenstein bones and muscles together to create an entirely new, believable creature. Or add wings to your angel OC in a way that at least feels anatomically correct. I'd recommend doing some practice anatomical drawings of the animals you want to reference before starting your design, but like, I'm not patient, so I don't do that. Go crazy. Anyway, here's how you can do this. Start by sketching out what you generally want the character to look like. Don't worry about refining it or making it look perfect. Depending on what features you want, collect the appropriate references. For example, if you want a dragon-like tail, look up something like alligator tail anatomy. I find that drawing a basic guide for where the joints should be and how they connect helps a lot. You can represent this with basic lines for bones and circles for the joints. It kinda looks like a rig. From there, use your references to sketch out the character's skeleton. No, you don't need to make this insanely detailed unless you want to. A tip I have for this stage is to sketch out big shapes to help you place the bones, like a couple giant ovals for the rib cage and pelvis and a curved line for the spine. On top of the skeleton, draw the muscles. Admittedly, I find this part insanely difficult, as muscles can weave beneath each other and wrap around the skeleton in very confusing ways. Just do your best and don't be afraid to look up more references or ask for help. And while this stage is helpful, if you don't like it, then you can skip it. It's fine. Now you can redraw the skin and clothing on top of everything. And you've not only just designed a character, but you've designed anatomy. Next up is adding color to your sketches. I like to duplicate my chosen design sketch a bunch of times and roughly add color to each of them to give myself a wide range of options. For figuring out a palette, I tend to just rely on my knowledge of color theory, which I would like to talk about, but it'd take too long. So if you want a tool to help, Coolors.co is fun to play around with, as well as the Adobe Color Wheel, which is free. Shocking, I know. Procreate also has something similar to Adobe's Color Wheel with the Harmony option in the Color Wheel menu, and utilizing blend modes and gradient maps can also be a good jumping off point. Once I have my colors set, I like to sketch a new pose for the character and use that as their final render, or reference. You could use the colored in design sketch, and I even think it'd work well for a turnaround, but I'm more of an illustrator than an animator, so I prefer having a fun pose instead. Sometimes I use pose sketches I've drawn previously since it speeds up the process, but when I want to find a new pose, I usually use Pinterest. I've been collecting references on Pinterest since before Gen AI was even a thing, so I have a good catalog built up. I actually have a lot of Adorka stock references in there. If you don't know them, their whole thing is creating reference pose photos for artists to use. They have their own website where you can search through a bunch of different categories of poses, and they have a good range of body types. Also, something I really like doing with my references now is to have my characters holding their weapon, or some other item. I think it adds interest and makes it feel a little bit more like they're actually doing something and not just standing in a void. After I refine and color my sketch, I just do my normal painting process. Now the designing stage is done, mostly, and it's all about making things look pretty. We're nearing the end of the video, and I'd like to really quickly say that I have commissions open. I have set price character art commissions, as well as more complicated commissions like full illustrations and book covers. You can message me on Instagram or TikTok at Sinister Sons, or visit my Ko-Fi if you're interested. Alright, here's how my design came out. My favorite part of this was actually figuring out the anatomy. It was a nice break from the type of design I usually do. They don't have a name yet, maybe y'all can help me out with that, but what I do know is that they're non-binary, the fantasy equivalent of a postal worker, are from rural Alençon, and are laid back and enjoy their job. Probably the happiest character I've created for this world so far. Tell me about your favorite ways to design characters. Do you think you'll use any of these tips? I'll leave links to the resources I've mentioned in the description. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and you can follow me on my TikTok and Instagram for more regular updates. Okay, bye!